Hello, in this presentation we will compare QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop. Hello, in this presentation we will generate, analyze, and export to Excel a accounts receivable aging report within QuickBooks Online. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in the QuickBooks Online dashboard. We will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. We're looking at some of those other reports other than the financial statements, the balance sheet, income statement, or profit and loss, which are very common, very important reports. This time, the accounts receivable aging report. In order to see that, we're going to go down to the report's left side, and we are in the frequently run reports. If you are in the accounts receivable department, the aging report for accounts receivable will often be the one of the reports we see and use a lot. So it will be frequently run for you if we're in that department. We're going to type it up here, and we're just going to type AR instead of accounts receivable. We're just going to abbreviate to AR, and that'll give us the AR aging summary report. So this is AP, and we're looking for AR, accounts receivable aging summary report. So obviously the A/R stands for accounts receivable. So we will select that item then, and here is our report. We're going to change the dates. This is a report that's as of a point in time, and therefore we just need the end date. So we're going to choose the end date for the time period we will be working on, and that is 02/28/21 or February 28th, 2021, and run that report. So if we scroll back up, remember we haven't yet input the data in this problem set, so if you're working along with us, we won't have any data yet. This is what will be resulted after we enter the data for the 2-month time period, January and February of 2021. So if we scroll back down here, then we're going to see our AR aging report. Now, the idea of the aging report is it's going to break out the receivable items here. When we look at the balance sheet, we will have a receivable item. So if we run a balance sheet as of the same time period, which is February 28th, 2021, we would see then, hopefully we should see, an $11,274 amount in accounts receivable. Now, accounts receivable is one of those accounts where you need a different type of backup format, which is this one, other than the normal backup, which is the general ledger, or as QuickBooks calls it, the transaction detail report. So in other words, if we thought about this in terms of our business, or if we were the bookkeeper and someone was asking us questions like the owner, if we told the owner that if they asked us how much money people owe us, we're going to say the accounts receivable says that people owe us $11,274. We can get this amount on the balance sheet. It's probably the second account on the balance sheet. The next question, of course, though, is going to be, well, who owes us that money, and when are we going to get paid that money? And to do that, you would think we could go to some detailed report. The standard detailed report would be to just drill down on or auto zoom in the balance sheet amount, and that would give us the transaction detail, kind of like the general ledger. But that only gives us information by date of when it happens, and we'll see money going in and out of the accounts receivable. What we really want to see is the information broken out by client or customer, and that is what this report does. It's going to break it out by client or customer and show who owes us money. Now, not only does it break it out by client or customer, but it also tells us how old or how outstanding the debt is. So that's what these accounts up here are going to be. So if it's current, that means it hasn't gone past the date that we asked for. So if I was to select this item and look at this invoice, we're going to select this invoice. And this is the invoice clearly that is making that information. This is the form that we will be working on and putting in place at a later time. And we can see that it was invoiced on 2/28, and it's not due according to the net 30 terms until 30 days, which would be March 30th. Therefore, it's still current. And so we're not really worried about that one. We expect to be paid on that one, and it's not past the due date, so we think that it's still good. We don't really need to call Diana Martinez and ask for our money at this point because the invoice already went out and it's not past the due date. So we could, if we're desperate for cash, we might do that, but it's not past the due date. So we're not going to do that yet. So we're going to close that out. We're going to scroll back up and we're going to go back to our report. So that's going to be, all these are going to be current. So we're pretty good on these. And then if we see this item for Jones Guitars, it's a little past due. So it's at $3.99. And that one then, we're probably going to be, if we're monitoring the accounts receivable, more likely to call Jones and Guitar and say, hey, you know what, it's past due, or send a follow-up request. So that's what this type of report will do. If we're in an accounts receivable department with a lot of clients, then we're going to scan over this report all the time. It's going to be one of the reports we deal with all the time. We might have even the detailed report, which will show this information and a bit more detail in terms of the actual invoices within the report that would be due, in this case, to Jones and whatnot. Otherwise, we can, of course, click on it and drill down on it. This report's also useful for us to try to estimate. We can say, this is how much people owe us. This is an asset. If we go to the bank, we're saying, hey, people owe us $11,274. That's an asset. And we can use this report and say, well, yeah, but some of it's past due. So we can try to say how much of that we actually don't believe we're going to collect. So this is a report that can give us an estimate or help us to come up with an estimate of, say, of a real number that we think is actually collectible. So this would be what we expect to receive based on the work we have done. And a certain amount of that is probably, for many types of company, depending on the industry, will not be collectible. And the fact that it's older, the older amounts that are past due for a longer period of time are more likely not to be something that we will collect on. And so we can make an adjustment for that, or make a calculation that's called an allowance. And we won't get too much into the allowance method. But just to mention that this is one report we can use to create the allowance account. All right, so we're going to go and customize this just a bit. All we're going to do is remove the date, time, and stamp down there. In order to do that, we're going to go scrolling back up top. We're going to go to the customization here. And we're going to scroll down to the header and footer and have the triangle going right to the triangle going down. And scroll down, and we want to uncheck the date prepared and the time prepared. Then we're going to say run that report. And then if we scroll back down, we have the same report, except we don't have the date and time prepared at the bottom. Then we'll scroll back up and we will print or export this report. We're going to export this report. So we're going to go to this item here and export the report to Excel. It's going to open up on the left side if you're in Google Chrome. If it doesn't open up, then check your settings, make sure that it's okay for QuickBooks to open up Excel. Also make sure that we have the program of Excel. We will then have to enable editing in order to open up the program and manipulate the numbers within the program. And here it is. And once we have this, we can adjust any of the adjustments we need much more easily within Excel. We do want to check if it fits on one page. I believe it will be. We can check that by going to the page layout view, which is this tab down here. We can do this a few different ways, but this is the way I do it. Check down here, and then it's got that break right there. So that looks good. And then we're going to go back to the normal view, and we get then that dotted line, and that's where the printing will take place. So everything looks good to me, so we'll keep it like that. And we're going to go ahead and save this. Note the formulas here. Once again, you can kind of see how they're constructing this, and you can use QuickBooks to really piece together almost from a reverse standpoint that you would, almost from an auditing standpoint, than you can reverse build it, you can reverse construct it, as opposed to what you really learn in accounting theory is you usually learn how to put the pieces together from like if you're building a house, from the bricks to the house. Well, accounting software will often data input makes the house, and we already have the house, the financial statements, the end reports in this case, and we can reverse construct it, kind of like taking apart the house to see how it works. So if you've taken financial accounting, it's good to see things from both directions. That gives you a good understanding. This gives you an understanding. These end reports, we can drill down, both auto zoom on the reports to see what were the driving documents to make them, And when we export it to Excel, we get to see these formulas that really kind of see how these are made. And obviously this is made from adding up these cells. Now a more efficient formula here, you would think, would just be the sum formula, just summing up those cells. So I'm not sure exactly the benefit of having these brackets or the pluses here, but still it's a good formula, and you can go through here and see how these things are being put together. So we're going to go ahead and save this. So we're going to go to the File tab and Save As. We're going to browse to the location where we want to save as. We're going to put ours in our folder called Excel Docs 4, Excel Docs 4. And within that folder, I'm going to rename this. Notice I have mine set up so we have an extension here, so obviously you don't want to delete the extension because that would change the file type possibly. And I'm going to say AR. Now we can't put a slash like this because if you're in Windows you can't. If you're in a Mac, I believe you can, because it thinks that that's some kind of computer code. So we're just going to put AR aging summary, and we probably should have the date, which was 02/28/21. And again, I don't put dashes, I just put dots for the date. But you probably want to think about how you're going to summarize or go back to these reports. And if you're turning these into a class, or especially a client or the boss, it really matters if you have like 5 reports, basically how they're ordered, because that's going to save a lot of time for your client to open up the reports. And so you want to name them as nicely as possible. Try to put them in a zipped file if you can, put them all in one area. So it's really important to really kind of think about those details, which I may not spend as much time on here. So I'm going to save that, and that will be the AR aging summary. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Hello, in this presentation we will create an accounts receivable aging report within QuickBooks Pro 2018. If you've been working along with us, we will be continuing with the Get Great Guitars problem. If not, that's okay. We will be creating an aging report within the software. If you have the backup file, you can restore that by going to the File and Open Restore. We currently have the Open Windows open over here. By selecting the View and Open Windows list, you can have that open as well. And we have the Company tab or Company page open, found at the Company dropdown and the Home page. We're going to be looking at the AR aging summary. Going to be a crucial report when we're trying to see who owes us money and how past due it is, and what kind of collection action we should be doing in order to get any accounts receivable outstanding balances paid. To do that, we're going to go to the Reports drop-down. We could go to the customers here and locate these reports, but we're going to go from this section to the Report Center. Report Center. I'm going to go ahead and maximize this report over here. We are in the grid format, so we see them in a grid format here. We're looking at a customer report, an AR report, accounts receivable report. Therefore, we're going to be in the customer section. Note that to go to the customer section, we must be in the standard tab rather than the memorized favorites, recent, or contributed tab. And then we'll see the customer receivables on the left-hand side. Within the customer receivables, the first item is the AR aging report. It's a very important report because it'll give us that indication of what kind of receivables are not going to be possibly collectible, or which ones we want to spend most of our time on collecting. And we're going to go down here and run this report. This report is a balance sheet report and therefore reported as of a point in time, therefore only one date. The point in time we will run this for is 02/28/21, otherwise known as February 28th, 2021. And we'll have a report like this. And the total of this report, this $11,274, this being a subsidiary type report, should match out to our core financial statements, our core reports, those, the balance sheet and the income statement or profit and loss. This should tie out then to the balance sheet report for accounts receivable. Let's check that out and see if it does. We're going to go to the reports up top. We're going to go to Company and Financial. We're going to scroll down to the balance sheet. Here's the balance sheet. And we're going to change the date to, once again, 02/28/21. Tabbing over, tabbing across. There's the accounts receivable. So the accounts receivable is $11,274. That's how much people owe us. We want to know a few different things about that number. One, who owes us that money so we can try to collect on it. And how past due is it so that we know which people we need to concentrate on, which accounts we need to concentrate on more to collect those past due amounts. If we go back here to the AR aging, we have the $11,274. That then is this $11,274 broken out by customer here. Here's the totals by customer. Here are the customers on this side. And we also have it broken out by how old it is. So we have the current portion. These are things that if our terms are like 30 days or not past 30 days, these are past due. So our most important amounts are going to be this one and these. This is kind of a funny item here because what's happening is we had a reversing or a deposit possibly for string music. We'll talk more about that later. But in any case, then we have the 30 to 60 to 60 to 90, the past due amounts. Nothing in those categories at this point. If they were in that category, then we would be more and more likely to say that this might not be collectible. And at some point, we would have to write that off and say that we're not going to be able to collect those items. We're going to go ahead and export this report to our Excel worksheet for this process. We already have an Excel worksheet that we have been working on. We're going to export this to a current workbook in that case. We're going to go to Excel. We're going to create a new worksheet, but then put it to an existing workbook. So we're going to go to an existing workbook, locate that workbook. It's probably going right there right now because we went there last time. Looks like it's in the correct location. That's the one we want. We could then open it or just double click on it and export. It's going to open up Excel. It's going to create a new tab for this information, exporting this information to that new tab. Then we will do our normal type of adjustments, that including bringing this to the outer column. These are the other worksheets we've done where this is the current sheet. I'm going to grab that and pull it to the right. So we have it over here, and this is going to be an AR aging, and that is going to be that information. Then I'm going to go to the View tab up top, View tab in Excel. We want to go to the Windows group and unsplit the screens. So we have unsplit screens. Then go down to the View options down at the bottom. We've got the normal view. We've got the page layout view. Selecting page layout view. If we scroll up, there's our header information. It's all printing on one page, so it looks like we are okay with this report. Going back to the normal view, that will be our information. We're going to save this report and okay, and then close this, and that will be the accounts receivable aging.